Bunch of empty, I know.
Empty what?
Whole bunch of empty.
Is she the projector?
Huh?
Is she the projector?
No, it's a camera.
She's a projectionist.
It already takes your
I do it with huge stuff for the TV station though. I don't use little stuff like this.
He's merely, you won't see anything from this, he's merely taking pictures of his presentation. It's a video camera.
It's a small one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. These new 8mm, Sony 8mm, they're great.
I have one extra.
Yeah, we have quite a few of them. Yeah, they put out a lot of good literature.
I think this one was a pretty good one for today.
Yeah, we ordered some for all of our study groups.
We're going to start a study group on Wednesday nights here. We're starting 3 weeks from this Wednesday. And, it's going to be an outreach thing in our study group. We're going to have 52 people. Each one will teach 1 week. And we have 7 people in our study group now, all wanting to do something. New, young, enthusiastic readers. You know, we have a reputation for being a wild, loud group, but it's because we have all these new young readers that come in and they're so enthusiastic. You know how they are.
Yeah, when you first hear about it, you're all ready.
And so that's why we're so wild, because the old readers, I've been reading 10 years this year, but the new readers are wild. You know,
Yeah, I remember when I first thought about it, I wanted to change the world.
And I love it, you know.
I couldn't understand why everybody else didn't want to do the same thing.
I know, and we encourage it, you know, we encourage them to keep that enthusiasm. We don't let it, we put them into energy that they can.
You see, we have quite a few notes on this.
Yeah. I really thank you for coming and supporting him. He's a nervous wreck. He talks to our group all the time. No public
Seems to be all right. You would know though.
Yeah, he loves the book. And I said, well, if you like the book, you can talk about it.
You say you had 70 years in your study group? You can't, of course, have that much in a meeting.
We don't have them all. There's like 15 to 25 people. Yeah.
That's how I do a large first.
In the summer, we have double rooms. I mean, the living room, we got them everywhere. But they're good sports. If they have to sit on the floor, they don't care.
Okay, I'm not going to try his last name again. I'd like to introduce you, Pierre. Okay, he's going to talk to us on the Urantia Book. Pierre, let's give him a hand.
A loving nurse. She's a beautiful person.
Yeah.
This is really good. Thank you, Jan. That was beautiful. It's something that I haven't been to in a long time, and I really felt good about it. I think I'll bring my children. I have a lot of sunshine in my soul today. It feels good. It's a beautiful day. And my name is Pierre Chiquan, for those that haven't got it. Forget the last part. I don't think only one person in my life has ever really got it right. So, the Urantia Book. I've been reading the Urantia Book for 10 years, and it's made a big difference in my life. I think anyone that's read it will say the same thing. Who has read the Urantia Book in this room?
Well, I haven't read it.
Well, we've got a good group here. When I was a child, I used to look up at the stars. I was kind of an amateur astronomer. And I had read about Mars and saw the canals. And I really thought there was life up there, you know. It was kind of romantic. It was kind of thrilling. that someday we'd get to see an alien race. Of course, we were all Catholic up there in Quebec, Canada, and, so I didn't say too much about it. But it was a very romantic feeling. I'd look up at the sky, and there'd be a purple firmament, and I'd see the Milky Way, and I knew there was something up there. I just knew it. I felt it down deep in my bones. It wasn't until years later that I actually got a hold of something that started explaining it. So I think that's where it began. And really, you know, I think the Urantia book, if I had to condense everything in the Urantia book and say what it really was, I'd say it's something that tells you personally that you're a son and a daughter of a beautiful Creator. And God is love. This whole thing is the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. We're all sons and daughters of a magnificent Creator who's created this whole thing for us. And it's for us. The whole universe is pointed right down at these little creatures on these planets here. And it's all made for us. We'll go up and learn as we go. God is love. That's what He is. He doesn't just express love. God is love. That's why I love listening to Jan. And this hugging thing, that was magnificent. I want to come down just to do that. That's great. See, we hug after our meetings, our Urantia meetings, which I had Monday night. I think we'll start hugging before. That's a real good thought. It's a real good feeling, because that's what we really want to do anyway. We're all searchers and adventurers. A lot of us, it takes time to figure that out. That deep down inside, we really want to know what's going on. We're all really looking for the truth. We always will be. We always want to know what the real truth is. We're adventurers. We've begun an adventure that isn't going to end. It's just going to get better and better and better. And that's part of what the Urantia book brings. It explains part of the adventure, or at least it kind of satisfies you a little bit. 2,100 pages is not enough to give you the story of everything that's going to happen. It just isn't. But it can kind of give you a real beautiful feeling of who you really are and how magnificent creation really is. It takes a long time to get there. So it is the fatherhood of God and the sonship of man. Brotherhood of mankind. That's the main story behind this. But just saying that, I mean, it was said 2,000 years ago. Jesus said it. Our Father who art in heaven. He told you that we're all His children, that we should be like little children to get up there. But there's more to it than, I mean, if that was all there was to it, we'd be enlightened 2,000 years later. But it takes time. And now we're really ready. And that's why the Urantia book came. It's because we're ready. We're starting to ask questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What's life? What's this funny little place that we call Earth? You know, we look out and see a moon rotating around it, and the sun out there. It's on a beautiful night, you can see the Milky Way galaxy, and you ask yourself, what am I doing here? You know, am I just a little tiny creature? You know, after I die, that's it. So all these questions, I think you start out when you're younger as a searcher and an adventurer, and it builds, at least it did for me, a fire that burns inside. You really want to know the truth. And wherever you go, it's tough to find truth. Bhagavad Gita, Quran, the Bible, each one has truths in it. All the books that you read has truth. And filler material. It's the filler material that got me. But in our search, we'll go through a lot of filler material. When I first started reading the Urantia book, I think the thing that shocked me the most when I first started getting into its papers was no filler material. That's very strange. You know, there's a lot of books out there. It's an excitement that consumed me when I first began. It took me 3 months to read it. And for 3 months I didn't do anything else. And if you ask Marlene, she commented to me for 3 months about, you know, I had a life, I had a family, business. Yeah, well. But for 3 months I took off on the most beautiful adventure I could get on, and I almost envy anyone that actually begins the journey again like I did. The Urantia book itself tells the story of history, of the universes, the central and super universe. You know who you are, where you're at, where you're going, how many beings are out there, how many planets are inhabited, who God is, a central universe. The Urantia book starts out with it starts up high with the Father, showing His love and His love for you, and He looks at you in your potential, not your actual. So it's not where you are right now, it's where you pointed that matters. It doesn't matter if you're on Skid Row, if you're a giant among men or a pauper. It's not significant. The significance is where you pointed. If you're pointed towards the light and the love of the Father. And I think that's what you begin to see in the first papers of the book. Of course, the first 50 pages are so tough, I think Einstein would have probably put the book down because of that first. But, so the journey begins from God and paradise and explains His nature, His attributes. You begin to understand the real Father, this Creator that's omnipotent and omniscient, and what He's really done for you. It begins to unfold a picture of how big this thing really is. It's big. It's not small. It's not one tiny little planet on the corner of the Milky Way. We're talking just time space, 386 million galaxies that our telescopes can see. That's big. That's huge. It's an adventure and a thrill that we're going to be going through for trillions and trillions of years, and we've just begun, really. As far as time goes, it's just a drop. So, that's the picture that the book starts painting, and all these beings that are interrelated, and how they're connected, and how they communicate with one another, and how they administer to such a huge creation. They explain in the first part of it how many galaxies are inhabited, paradise, the central universe that is perfect around paradise, and then 7 galaxies or super universes that are inhabited, and then this enormous 386 million galaxies out here they say very little about. They kind of entice you. That's what you do best. They know what you really want. They've been there for a long, long time. So the Urantia book, what it is a revelation to mankind. Its authors, when I first looked at its authors, I thought, this is really strange. I don't think I want to read this. But I kept going, because I had a friend that introduced me. He was a hypnotist. And I believed in what he had said. He made sense. So I began its trek. So anyway, after going from the center, from God, outward in the paradise, and explaining time, space, and all the beings that are involved in its administration, some of their stories, some of these stories are really beautiful. You get into kind of understanding what they're after, what they're doing, what you're going to be doing, what you're doing right now. You kind of get a picture of who you are. Something that is lacking here on Earth. A picture in contrast to the picture you get anywhere else. Because you see yourself interlinked in all of this administration, all the way down to yourself. There are people, seraphim, right now taking care of you, watching over you, making sure that your progress goes in the right direction. And it's all based on love. There's a spark of the Father inside of you that you see as the Spirit and follow. It's a magnificent reality. And you begin to feel that. And this is what they begin with as we go on with the central and super universes all the way down to us. And that's the first part of the book is about the central and super universes, which is paradise, Havana, and the super universes. And where you live, and that's the grand picture. Then it comes down to the local universes, the universe of Jesus. Jesus came down here to live a life as a man, and we got a lot of him. But to really understand Jesus, we have to understand his universe. To understand who he is and what he really done and how beautiful it really was and how much of him it really took to be here as a creature among us. We get a picture in the second part of the book of the local universes. The local universes are made up, well, of 10 million inhabited planets. 10 million. And under those 10 million, there's constellations, systems, and planets that are all inhabited, down to the system level. The second part of the book explains the administration and history of this local universe. It's a fascinating history. What happened here in the local universe affected us very directly and affects us today. The way we look at life and a lot of the things that we do in our life and the people we relate to and the systems that we relate to are explained here in the local universe papers. I think that the best way to approach this is to see ourselves as just a little tiny piece of a large creation. And there's Jesus. What he does is he develops a system, an environment, so that the sparks of the Father, the sons and daughters, his brothers, can live and experience a life here. And that's what he did here. He created an environment for us, his local universe, our planet, these kind of trees, a lot of thoughts that go through our head and the way we look at life. That's Jesus. He left a piece of us in him also, and he left a piece of him in us that could let us look for the truth. So we're always looking for the truth. You look for the truth right now in my word. And this explanation of the local universe comes all the way down to our system, a system that has 1,000 inhabited planets, or will have anyway. Right now it's about 619. This planet, Earth, suffered a rebellion 250,000 years ago. And it was left with legends of this rebellion. It made, in my estimate, I would guess probably the darkest planet in the universe. One that doesn't have an idea of its origin, and really doesn't have much of an idea of its destiny. That's something. We don't know who we are, where we're going. Not as far as history. And I guess this was the best time to bring this book to us, because now we've got our eyes open and we're looking. We want to know. We want to know the truth. So that the story of the local universes brings the story really close to us. This rebellion that happened 250,000 years ago isolated the planet. And it's still isolated. It's quarantined. So if you want out spiritually, I imagine you have a hard time doing that. And there's a lot of things that this planet isn't getting because it was cut off spiritually. See, we're supposed to be taught how to build these cities. We're supposed to understand how beautiful it is, and everything goes along at a very nice pace, very comfortably. Instead, Urantia, Earth, suffered a hiccup. It doesn't know where it's at. The bestowal that we had that was supposed to teach us life on this planet is gone. It's not here. And so we're floundering, looking for the truth. At least we were 250,000 years ago. And it took till about 38,000 years ago, and this is in the story of the local universe still, till about 38,000 years ago when Adam and Eve came to upstep us. And that story, if you read it, if you've read the book like I read the book, by this time I was wondering who wrote this thing. I mean, was it a group of psychologists, a whole bunch of liars? But it had to be someone that was very knowledgeable. And when they got into the story of Adam and Eve, that was the most profound story I'd ever read anywhere, because it was real. I saw it in reality. Two beautiful beings coming down to this planet to advance it after it suffered a rebellion and doesn't know where it's at. It's very primitive. Of course, it still is today. But very primitive 38,000 years ago. They didn't know who they were. They were into cannibalism, an enormous amount of primitive behavior. Very barbaric. They were used to that. These are beings that are used to civilizations that are far more advanced than ours, far more beautiful. People love each other up there. As civilization progresses, you find more and more love. People begin to see each other more and more. They're willing to accept each other more and more. They begin to see each other more. And I can imagine the kind of civilization that Adam and Eve came from. Magnificent place that someday I'll be there. But I'm here now, and when they came down here, they experienced what it was to be human. And they experienced what it was to see a primitive group. And I understand their default. And it was Eve that actually did an intellectual default, and Adam followed. And I think because of it, it left a stigma. First, where man looked down upon women because of it. And this is my feeling. And there was, and I don't think until the 20th century do we really begin to see that we need to be equal. We begin to see that equality is a beautiful thing. But from that time, and probably some before that, women were looked down upon quite a bit. I think that there are times the men would take care of their cows before they would take care of their wives. You know. So as the story progresses from the local universe and goes through the rebellion of Lucifer and Satan and Kaligasha, as they name him, comes closer and closer to Adam and Eve and what that meant to us 38,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, we actually start getting into the history of mankind. And the book starts out like this, very unfamiliar. I mean, it's okay to talk about billions and trillions of inhabited planets, but it's not until it starts getting real that you really start getting into it, of course. And you start understanding it and placing it in perspective here today. And I think that's what started happening in the history of Urantia, of Earth. And this history starts from its very inception, from the life carriers who carry life to this planet and began it, all the way through the Adam and Eve story, the Lucifer story, the Adam and Eve story again, and then Melchizedek, who came 2,000 years before Christ. It was Jesus has bestowals. What he does is he's got to rule this universe. That's his goal. That was his goal. And in the history of Earth, they begin explaining what his purpose was here. They explain, of course, our purpose. And in the history of Earth, Melchizedek was, he realized it wasn't at 2,000 years before Jesus came, nobody had a one God concept. There was, everybody believed in all kinds of things. They believed in gods in plants, gods in alcohol. You know, they drink alcohol and they feel real good that night. And when the spirit of the plant left you the next morning, you felt terrible, right? They had spirits in everything. Wood, suns, they worshiped suns and rocks. They still worship rocks today. Now they put value on them, you know. But in any case, it's quite an interesting history. Anyway, 2,000 years before Jesus Melchizedek's, they kind of run the planet. They took over the direction of the planet after the default 250,000 years ago. And when Machiventa Melchizedek, was his name, heard that the most beautiful being in this universe was going to come down, his father was going to come down and live a life on a primitive planet like this one, the darkest. And of course, Jesus picked it, I think, because it was probably the darkest. My guess is it is the darkest. He picked, when Machiventa saw this, he couldn't see his beautiful father coming down here to a planet that had already caused beings to go astray, beautiful beings like Adam and Eve. And I imagine the emotion was enormous within him. So he petitioned to come down here and teach and show the one God concept, the beauty of the Father to these people. And that's what he did 2,000 years before Christ. And what that did, it began a series of events that led to the beginning of a religion that first, I think, went to Egypt as Aton, and then through Egypt to the Hebrews, and through the Hebrews until Jesus was here 2,000 years ago. And that's where the story begins on the fourth part of the book. Jesus made it personal. He made it very real to us. He told us we're sons and daughters of this magnificent Creator. And he let that sink in. People followed him around. What a beautiful story. Most everyone that starts in the Urantia book starts with the Jesus papers. That's okay. I mean, for me, it's best to get the whole book before you get up to the Jesus papers. Then you can really understand what happened to Jesus and his purpose here. Jesus came here not simply just to tell us something, not to open the doors for us, but he came here to live a creature life. And what do we do? Well, some listened, most of them ignored him, and crucified him. My God. They crucified the most beautiful being that ever came to this planet. The most beautiful. Would they today? I don't think so. Today you've got mass communications. But Jesus came at a time when he knew they wouldn't have mass communications. He could have picked any planet in the universe, but he came to this one. And the story that the Urantia book goes through about Jesus takes him all the way from his home in Salvington. The reasons why he had to come to this planet, why he chose this one. The reasons why he had to live a life like the creatures he had created. Because this is his creation. Humans. Humans with eyeballs and hairs and the way they walk and everything. This is his whole thing. The way they relate to their Father. The way they relate to him and life and their children. Nature. And the nature we see, that's all Jesus. That was his creation. When you look out there and you see beautiful flowers on a Sunday and the sun is shining on them and you see the magnificence of creation, that's Jesus. That's his way. That's him. And that's what you see in the Urantia book. That's the explanation you begin to see as they go through the history of his life down here. So, what Jesus was saying was that the real story was in you. The love that we were all looking for, to search, it's all in us. The kingdom, we're all kings and queens. The kingdom is in us. And when we begin to see the love in others, when we look and see that everyone around us is real, that they're beautiful, that the being is in us, the personality is incredibly beautiful, incredibly important. We've just begun to see it, just barely touching its magnificence. If we could really see inside of ourselves, but we can't. It takes something. It takes love. It takes the ability to see it in others. And when you can get to see it in others, you begin to see it, that there's a Father. There's a Father that's very close to you. And He is your Father, your direct Father. And He's love. Jesus got to the point where He actually controlled His animal. Now that's an easy thing to say. I've been trying to do it. It's not easy. I can't imagine being on a cross and putting my arms up and having nails going through my wrist and saying, Father, forgive them, they're ignorant. I'd be cursing the day they were born, probably. Maybe not. But He conquered Himself. And that the story of Jesus is more than just the story of Jesus Himself. Christianity today has gone on a track for the last 2,000 years of making Jesus the religion. The real religion of Jesus is the one He was talking about, not Him. Jesus is a beautiful being, a Son of God, created a universe for us to live in and to grow in and to experience in, to find love in, to find a Father in each other. But it's what He was saying that was important. It's His message about the Father. He reiterated that over and over and over again. What does it matter who I am? It's what I say. It's what I say that matters about my Father, about life. Listen to me, he who has ears. And he'd say it over and over and over again. But even then, His apostles, and we're always looking at Him, you know, they eventually made a religion about Jesus instead of Jesus. But the religion of Jesus is waking up again. When I listen to Jan over here talking about love, wow. When I grew up, I got incense and many rituals. Little talk about love. We felt it, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't acknowledge it. Its magnificence. That's probably what you get in the last story, the history of Jesus. It wasn't so much that there's these grand universes with beings that are fantastic, that can do beautiful things, and that you'll be able to, you yourself, experience all of these in your ascendant career. And you'll get a real long-distance view of yourself. It wasn't so much that so much as it became personal. It became real because it was love. There was something happening inside of you. And I think that's what Jesus was all about. He brought that out. The caring that people should have for each other. And He only left us with one commandment. To love each other as I've loved you. That's what He told His apostles on the night of the supper, the Last Supper. To love each other as I've loved you. Now, that's enormous. I don't know if I can do that. That's quite a commandment. If I spend the rest of my life trying to do that, I may not be able to attain it. Jesus had so much love for His people. For me to even get just a small part of that will make me very, very real. And I can see that Jesus was very real. He knew what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. Only because He loved. So, I think when we begin to see each other, and we begin to see the Father, that's when we'll find ourselves. And that's the real search, that's the real adventure, is to find ourselves. It's more than psychology. It's more than finding the history of your own life. It's more than any religion. It's all within us. And that's where He was going. If you can see the love of the Father, if you can see the fatherhood of mankind, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of mankind, if you can see that, if it becomes real to you and you see the equality, the spiritual equality, although all of us are unequal physically, if you see the spiritual equality, that we're all the same, we all need love, then you begin to see yourself. And that's what we're after. That's an adventure. It's an adventure in seeing others and seeing ourselves. And that's what we're doing here on this little planet. We're living in an incredible life. Even if we're asleep all the way through it, we still wake up with the experience of having known each other, having experienced one great experience. To be a creature on a little planet, a very primitive little planet, in the corner of a great and grand universe that is really white, that only experiences a little tiny bit of evil every so often. That's the universe. That's life. It's white. It's good. It's right. It's perfect in many ways. The commandment that our Father gave us was perfection. Be thou perfect as I am perfect. So those are the two commandments I live by, that I got out of the Urantia book. To love each other as He loved us, and to be perfect as He is perfect. Well, I'll take a few trillion years, won't it? So, with that thought, I thank you for the sharing, and read the Urantia book. Also, if you have any questions, who are you? Where are you? What are you doing here? Any strange question? Catch me in something. Test me to see if I haven't been through it. I probably have. So if there's any questions, please ask now. Thank you.
Is there any questions? Can you take time for questions now?
Yeah.
Sure. Please.
I'd like to know what the book is founded on, where the information came from.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's always us.
Well, this is a revelation, superhuman revelation, of beings that have given us this book. They've decided that this is the right time to bring this book to the planet. It's ready for it. People are asking questions about it. So the authorship is divine. It doesn't come from God, though. It comes from beings that are part of the universe administration. And part of the universe administration decided it was time for this revelation to come to the planet. And so they sent it. 2,100 pages. Pretty much got it there?
Was it channeled through a person?
Well, there's a good one. That's really a good one. We're still asking that question. All of us. There's 170,000 books out there.
Readers.
I don't know if they're all readers, but I know there's 170,000 books out there. I hope they're all readers. A lot of it just sits on the shelf. What happened was, we know that Dr. Sadler had a lot to do. There was a doctor in Chicago. He had a lot to do with the book coming to the planet. But if it was channeled through a person, if someone was wide awake and was writing it down, we don't know. In fact, rumor is that he had to die before the book could be published. It was published in 1955. But they first began to get the papers in the 1930s. And I know someone that was there in the 30s, I think around 36, 34, that were actually receiving the papers, and they would read one paper at a time. And but they didn't publish it until 1955. And there was an original 70 that were involved in first getting the book. But how they were getting it, how they were getting these papers, had its mom or something, they don't say anything. And so the book has to stand on its own. It stands on its own 2 feet. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Kind of leaves you hanging, right? They do a lot of that. That answer your question? Kind of, huh?
Doesn't answer ours yet.
Hey, all I can say is we don't know. We don't know how we got the book. They mentioned one individual that was involved in this, in the papers. And that's it. That's it. The rest is pretty much guesswork.
Does the book say anything about what the afterlife is like? When we all get, a lot of us are getting close to it.
Oh,
Does
thank
it
you.
give us any idea what it's like?
2,100 pages. It's tough to get all of it, isn't it? Mansonia. Thanks, Harry. Mansonia is where we go after we die here. It's like a heaven to us. And but it's only the beginning. See, we already sense that it's going to happen over and over again. This is the story of life. And so in the story of the local universe, they go through dimension worlds in the process of our ascendant career. And the ascendant career begins here and goes up through dimension worlds. We begin here as physical, and we grow to be spiritual. Mansonia 1, we relive our entire life experience here. We go through all the problems of being an animal, I imagine. We're still partially animal up there. We're not spiritual. They call it Urantia. It's half animal and half spiritual. And we grow to be more and more spiritual. And that takes a long time. I think just going through the mansion world, the Urantia world, is we go through 590 different bodies. That's a lot. That's before we even totally spiritual. And that's just beginning spiritually as a child. So after we die, the book goes through all the explanation of what happens after we leave planet Earth. So there's plenty there. There's 7 mansion worlds, and the mansion worlds that Jesus was talking about are many mansion worlds. My Father's universe, whatever he said that. That's those are, he was referring directly to the 7 mansion worlds. There are 7 of them. The first one, you relive this life experience and go through all the problems that you had here dealing with everyone else, dealing with yourself. And you clean yourself up and get ready for the 2nd mansion world. Inside of us, there's a thought adjuster. This thought adjuster is a piece of God that guides us back to Him, back to our Father. A soul that grows. And in Mansonia, it just keeps growing. They mention in here that from the mansion worlds, the 7 mansion worlds up to Jerusalem, when Jesus had finished his career down here, his life down here, and died, there was a ceremony for his conquering, his bestowal here. And John got to see the ceremony. And so in the Bible, that's what he's explaining, is that ceremony. And you kind of get a picture of what Mansonia is like, at least anyway, in that particular room. Or I guess maybe it was on the crystals, and they explain a very large crystal on Mansonia and Jerusalem. So a little bit is in the Bible. You catch a little bit of it everywhere. I love to study history because I catch these things. The pearly gates, that's Mansonia 1. That's one solid block of pearls, I remember, right? As you walk in. But diamonds and pearls and all that, that's a very normal state up there. What you consider a lot of riches down here is just typical life up there. So, does that answer it?
Yeah.
I kind of want to feel in there.
One thing that I should have their questions, but to me it sounds, you talk about these millions of years that we have to keep working, and in our time frame that sounds like they're overwhelming. I'm tired. I don't want to go for millions of years.
Harry, the first trillion years are always the hardest, you know that.
I don't think you have much choice.
I think as you go on upward, I mean, I think it's like the energy gets greater and greater. By the time you get to Havana, the central universe, and you're getting close to seeing your Father again, I imagine is so enormous. They do mention one time there are perfect beings in Havana. They've lived in perfection. They know perfection. They have love. They are love. By the time you reach that stage of growing up there, there's an exhilaration that just cannot be explained to a human down here. But they do a pretty good job of explaining a lot of what they
Time frame must change too, doesn't it? The
time frame
changes too, because we're heading towards eternity.
Yeah.
Well, there is no time or space.
Actually, the beginning of creation and the ending of creation happen simultaneously to the Father. That's the way it is on Paradise. But in time and space, it takes time. It takes a lot of time.
But you aren't aware of after you leave this earth.
After what?
After you leave this earth, I don't think we're aware of time and space.
Well, by the time you reach the center of the super universe, which they call Urantia, what they did mention is the 250 years it took since the Lucifer rebellion, which happened down here on the planet, it takes 2 seconds on the super universe headquarters for that to happen. So yeah, there's a whole lot of shifting in time. So maybe it happens a lot faster than we can imagine. You got a question?
So, yes, well then, does this do away with the theory of reincarnation?
Not really. The theory of reincarnation is something inside of you. It's a view that you have of the way life is. I'm not concerned about details. I'm more concerned about the feeling itself. It's the feeling that you go over and over and over until you get it right. That happens. But to come back as an animal, no.
No, I didn't mean that. I was just going on the theory that, you come back depending upon the individual. We are told it comes back every so often, but according to your theory, they go on to this Mansonia. Then are they permitted to come back and reincarnate, or are we now on a completely different level of awareness?
You're on a different level of awareness.
Okay.
You're definitely there. What happens on Mansonia 1 is they start teaching you. They teach you about life.
In answer to that lady's question, I've given a lot of thought to this and a lot of research. The Urantia book says that reincarnation, as we've been taught on this planet, or a lot of people believe, is not so. There are many, many lives, but they are in a different, increasingly spiritual form, but they are on the other side. You never come back here. But in reading the Bhagavad Gita, it says that there are many lives. But what I think, at that time, this information was known that Pierre's talking about, but because people couldn't visualize other lives, they assumed and they turned it back to this planet. So ever since then we've been taught, heard about reincarnation, but actually these lives are on the other side if you choose to go on. The choice is up to you if you want eternal life.
Pierre, what are these people in Africa that are starving to death, and the street people and all those, how are they going to be lifted?
They'll get there. The experience for everybody. I mean, the sun is coming up on everybody every day. Whether you're starving or whether you're a powerful man in charge of whatever. It's for everybody, this whole experience. So if they've had a hard time down here, and there's a lot of people that have an enormously hard time, I'm not so concerned about them because I know where they're going. If they die, I know where they're going. It's a magnificent place. To die is really a beautiful thing. And wasn't it Jesus that said that all you have to do is just die? I mean, that's it. Don't worry about it. Don't be concerned. It doesn't really happen what happens around you. It's not significant so much what's happening around you.
Didn't you say that we go through 500 and something lives after we get to, what is it?
After the first mansion world, you go through 590 different bodies. You don't necessarily die. It's more of a retuning. I think that's the way they say it.
Just a graduation.
Uh-huh.
Somebody just mentioned you had eternal life if you chose. Then it's not, you don't necessarily have eternal life. If you don't want eternal life, what happens to him? Say Charlie Manson or some of these guys that do these bad things.
He isn't.
That's a good question.
Charlie Manson will probably wake up on the shores of Mansonia with Hitler someday. And I believe that they will show him, it's not exactly explained in here about what's going to happen when they awaken. But I believe that he's going to be shown what it is to look forward and see what life is really all about, how magnificent life really is, how beautiful it really is. And Charlie Manson will have a choice right then and there whether he wants to go on. The problem, I think, is when you've damaged yourself to that stage, when you live a life down here and you damage other people, you're really damaging yourself. You can't really hurt anyone else. It just doesn't happen. What you're doing is you're hurting someone else. And what happens to the Charlie Mansons and the Hitlers and whoever's and whatnot, of course I'm not them, and I can't tell what they went through and what their circumstance of life really was, how they grew up and how they were looking at life, and what actually happened to them personally. But my guess is that if they've destroyed themselves, they're too embarrassed. They don't want to go on. They want it to end. They live in misery and non-existence. Life is hell for them. And no being should be allowed to live in hell. So, but it's their choice.
Then you choose, you just become nothing? Is that, I mean, or what happens?
Right.
You're making a choice here and you just disappear into nothingness? Is this what,
Well,
from your
essentially,
spirit? Just,
personalities, as they explain the word personality, is a lot different than the way it's used, say, in the dictionary. Personality is the person within you, the being. And this being is eternal. Where it goes, if it's stripped of identity, they just say the oversoul of creation in him. But if it makes a decision not to go on, that's where it goes. The personality itself goes into the oversoul of creation. The person, the being, the identity of that being is stripped from it. It is no longer real. Identity is your reality. Your identity to look at yourself and see who you really are. You can say to yourself, I am. And that is stripped from them. And they are just as if they never were.
But the atoms, don't they go on and become something else that they never disappear?
For all I know, personality wakes up somewhere else with a different identity. I don't know. Maybe, it gets swallowed in the oversoul of creation, and that's what they say about it. The rest would be just conjecture on my part.
Eternity is love. That is not love just disappears. It doesn't exist.
Right. And that's the story. Everything that's destructive. This whole story is perfection of love. Anything that is self-destructive goes away. Anything that is destructive eventually will destroy itself. The hand that you reach out through your mind to help someone is the hand that's going to help you. The hand that you reach through your mind to destroy something out there, to hurt someone, when you're not looking, that's what it's going to be doing right back there in your mind. It's going to be destroying you.
That's why everything we do that's destructive comes right back to us like a boomerang. Every thought we do.
The ultimate karma happens immediately almost. As you damage, you are being damaged. But the damage is much more permanent to you than the person you think that you're hurting. For him, it's just temporary. If you're torturing or hurting or stealing or overpowering another human being, they'll learn from that lesson. They'll learn that they don't want to do it to anyone else. But you're damaging a part of yourself that's very beautiful. That's eternal. Your awareness, your love, it's flying away. The more you do for everybody else.
Does it matter if you talk about people dying? What about those who take their own life? How does that fit in with?
Well, I got a joke. There was a guy who was in a study group, right? He came to the study group for about 6 months. He read, really nice guy. And he committed suicide. And I think when we got done talking about it, after he got done reading the Urantia book, he felt it was okay.
He knew where he was going.
He's going on. He's the one that's going to make the choice, right? So we faced this as a group. We talked about it. What we say is, Jim is going to be in cosmic study hall for a long time. That's about it up there. Any other questions? Good, okay, so we can end it. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to mention, if anyone is interested in pursuing the study of this book, Pierre and I and our group are going to try to start a study here at the center in about it'll be about 3 weeks from this Wednesday, I guess.
Around the 23rd on Wednesday night.
About the 23rd on Wednesday night. And it's a real interesting study. I started reading the book 10 years ago. I just want to give a little testimony. And up until the time I read this book, I had a lot of human fears. I have 7 children, and I worried every day about all 7 of them and their mates and their children. I have 25 grandchildren, and I worried every minute about them because the world seems like to me at that time, 10 years ago, it seemed like everything was just, going downhill faster and faster. And as a parent and a grandmother, I was really concerned. And Pierre read the book, and then he came out and slammed it on the sink where I was doing dishes and said, "You will read this book." And I looked at it and I said, "Well, I will not read this book." And then he started studying it with a couple of other readers, and they got into these beautiful concepts. It's got the most beautiful, positive concepts for life you've ever read. And we've got 70 people that have read with us through the last 10 years, and out of 70, we have probably 35 different religions at our table. We have college professors, ministers from different religions, people from every walk of life, and this book brings everybody together. It's beautiful. It's got the most beautiful, like I said, concepts. It gives you a freedom to live and to let your family live and to let the world go on as it is. Of course, we want to all do the best we can for the world while we're here because it's our only chance. And we want to improve our lives and become examples that our children will look at and say, "Hey, I want to be a little bit like Mom or Grandma," or, we want to be ready to go to the mansion world with the best we can. But what this book does is it tells you, if you make a mistake, it's okay, because we're all going to be side by side in the next world anyway, and we're going to go to school, we're going to improve, we're going to have energy and youth and just, the tremendous promise that it gives us. And it doesn't do it in an exaggerated tone of any kind. It's got a very logical concept all the way through it, and the most positive concept of teaching I've ever read. And it makes you laugh. It gives you a humor about your life that I've never gotten anywhere else in any other study. And Pierre and I, that's what brought us together. Was he was a student. He has studied every religion. I have gone through losing him for weeks because he had to go study things, and he's been into every. He's put pyramids under his bed. He has. Well, he's done all these really far out things as far as he's gone all the way studying everything he could find, trying to find his truth about the Father. And when he read this book, it. Even with all his other love and of his home religion and his families and everything that he's ever studied, he's always got a little bit of love out of everything and a lot of knowledge out of everything. But this book brought to us a peace of mind and the ability to just get up every day. We enjoy life. We have energy no matter how tired we are. We both have careers. We both have full-time schedules. We do as much as we can for the people that we love, and we have this high energy because of this book. I mean, it just gives you such a high energy. You love life, and it doesn't matter how old the reader is. If you look into their eyes, you see this light. It's just beautiful. And it goes along a lot with the science of mind ideal, the positive thinking, and it just gives you this. It just ends all doubt about life, I swear. So
answers all the questions the Bible leaves out.
it does. Right. It answers all the questions anything leaves out. But we would like to invite anyone who's interested on, I think it's 7 o'clock Wednesday nights. And Pierre's going to lecture at the beginning classes. And then we have 70 other people that you'll be meeting throughout those Wednesday evenings. And we'll make it as interesting as possible. And you can ask all the questions you want. We'll stay all night if you'd like to, because that's the kind of book it is when you start studying. So thank you all of you for listening to me.
I'd just like to say that I've been reading the Urantia Book for 7 years, and the Urantia Book will find you. I mean, it's found you.
Yeah.
And you have an opportunity to check it out for yourself because you're ready for it. And otherwise, it'll come across in your life, and you just won't even see it or hear it. But
if it comes into your life, it means that it's found you. So that's how it found me, and I've been really blessed. So I hope that all of you check it out for yourself. Thank you.
Get as excited about it as we did.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
I'd like to say also that once I did pick it up here, I had to wash dishes for about 4 months.
And now it's your turn, is that it?
It was that exciting to read.
Oh, yeah.
Did you bring a copy of the book?
Yes, we did. And that's what I wanted to tell you. It's $34.50. I'm not selling you the book per se, but we got it from the foundation and some donations, and we have the book here today for $20, which is quite a savings if you're interested. And I would be willing to hold it for anyone who would like to hold it. You know, maybe purchase it at the time of the classes. We have a lot of people that believe so heavily in the book today that they're actually, you know, putting in all the funds they can to make the book a little less expensive so that we can get more books out.
Do you have it in all libraries? Should be in
We put them in the libraries, and believe it or not, and I know God forgives them all, it's the most stolen book in the library. But you know, it's not because they mean to, but when you get a hold of this, you start reading it and you read and read and read forever. You never stop reading it. I mean, I go back to it all, but mine's worn out, and I read. Pierre's worn out 3 books already in his endeavor, and it's just got so many positive and beautiful concepts that you just keep going back to it. You know, it's fun. And,
I can't imagine.
it's not a religion. That's one of the points too. It's not a religion. It's strictly a study of life, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's for everyone.
It's just open to every religion, every person. It's beautiful. Anyway, well, you can look at the book too. Also, I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question. We have Pierre has a book right up front there if you'd like to look through it. And like I said, if anybody does become interested enough to want to purchase it, we will make it available at that price. So don't go pay that. It's $34 or $36 at the bookstore.
Yeah, if you go to a bookstore, it'll be $36. But if you just call us sometime, and we'll pick it up for you for $20. It's pretty easy. Yeah, I've got 10 of them today.
He always takes them.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
We travel with this book.
See, it's bound very well. The reason it's expensive, it's bound really well. It's made of the best materials, really good materials. So you know they put the best printing into it. So it'll last a long time. People really beat these things up. You know, if you take it everywhere you go, you'd like throwing it.
Here, pass it around if you would.
I'll leave it. Anybody want to look at it right now?
She was asking if she could see it. So.
Oh, okay, sure. I've got 10 books in the car.
Thank you for
Hey, oh, sorry.
Okay, I want to thank all of you, and I hope you're looking forward to this. I'm going to be there on Wednesday. I think it's around the 23rd. So we're going to wait 2 weeks to get the advertising out. It'll be on Wednesday evenings, a $5 donation, and if you're interested, also Monday night I'm meeting with Reverend Ann Hunt, who wants to do crystal healing, probably on Monday night. So if anybody's into crystal healing, Ann was a former student of mine, and she works with Stanton Church. We're going to give that a try. I'm not into crystals, but some people are. So if you're interested in studying crystals, she's going to be coming probably on Monday nights in a couple of weeks. So get that too, that you might tell other people they're interested in crystals. Any more questions?
3 weeks from this Wednesday will be November 1st.
Oh, will it? I guess I didn't figure right on the. Okay.
That'll be a good time to start.
Well, we'll have to sit down and figure it out. We'll have 2 weeks for advertising.
Is it on the flyer? They got that already, they brought it with it?
Yeah, I don't have the date on it, and I want to talk about.
I guess I got my answers.
Just like, well, we can.
You know, my brother died a year, 3 months before Margie. He was drunk when he died. I'm sure I told you that. And when she had cancer, I can do it so much.
Oh, of course you do, because you love them. They live in your memory of them. You know, it's all right.
No, but you wonder what's going to happen with them.
Oh, they'll be fine. She hasn't got cancer now. He hasn't got cancer. It doesn't matter. Did you
I
hear?
wish I could get that back.
You get, have you read the Mansion World Papers in your book? You have your book, right?
Yeah, sure.
Read the Mansion World Papers.
Stella told me to read the story about Adam and Eve. I just have not been reading the book. I have to
If you read the
confess.
Mansion World, you'll no longer have any fears about your brother and sister.
Give anything in this world I
Because
come
you
back
become,
up there to
you
that
become
meeting.
perfect. You become perfect.
I
The
want
minute
to
you
come
leave
back to
here.
that meeting. I wish there was somebody that could, it's just such a traumatic experience to have you sit there for
I know.
2 hours at least.
Trying to get parked, yes. We'll have to see, we'll have to see about that.
I
We'll
don't
work
want to
on
park
it.
too far away because I don't like to walk. in
Okay,
that
well, we'll work
neighborhood.
on getting you to that meeting. That's what we'll do. That's what